I work the night shift as a nurse in a hospital built in the 70s. It's been a few weeks since I had two really unsettling experiences, and I still can't explain them. On my third night, I heard it. A soft sound, like a child crying. It was coming from the pediatric ward. I didn't want to believe it. I was tired and thought maybe I imagined it. The sound grew louder as I walked down the hall. I took a deep breath and told myself it was just my mind playing tricks. I stood at the entrance, squinting into the dark room. There was nothing but shadows. The lights flickered above me and my heart raced. I shook my head and moved on. The next night it happened again. The crying was back, more painful this time. I paused, listening closely. I thought maybe a child was lost. But as I stepped closer, the sound vanished. I felt cold, like something heavy was in the air. My coworkers started to notice my unease. They shared stories about the pediatric ward, sad tales of children who didn't make it. I brushed them off, thinking they were just hospital ghost stories. But that crying continued to haunt me. On the fifth night, I saw a flicker of movement in the ward. I turned my head quick. I thought I saw a small figure dart away in the shadows. A shiver ran down my spine. I felt my pulse quicken. "Hello? Is someone there?" I called out, but there was no answer. Just darkness staring back at me. Something inside pushed me forward, and I stepped cautiously into the pediatric ward. The crying came again, now louder, almost like a plea for help. I felt lost, caught between fear and a need to help. As I moved deeper into the room, I glanced around. Then I saw it. Just a glimpse. A small silhouette against the wall. Its wide, empty eyes locked on me. I froze. My heart was racing. I blinked, and it vanished. Just like that. Gone. The lights flickered one last time, and I heard a soft voice whisper, "Help me." I didn't know what to do. Panic filled my chest, and I ran. I sprinted down the hall, gasping for breath. My mind raced. I felt alone in the dark, like that voice was echoing in my head. Maybe it was real, or maybe it was just my sorrow and exhaustion playing tricks on me. I still don't know what happened that night. I can't shake the feeling of that child's crying, a sound that lingers in my thoughts. I don't think I'll ever forget it. The next night, I was on edge. I couldn't shake the memory of what I had seen, or thought I had seen, in the pediatric ward. My coworkers must have noticed something was off, because they kept glancing my way. I tried to focus on my patients, but the crying echoed in my mind, haunting my every move. Around 2 a.m., I had a break. I decided to grab some coffee from the staff room. As I poured the dark liquid, I remembered a story one of my coworkers told me. She mentioned a little girl who used to sit by the window, staring at the stars. Her name was Sarah. She had been in the hospital for a long time before she passed away. They said she loved to play hide and seek. I felt a shiver run through me. What if this was about Sarah? What if that crying was her, still looking for help? I dismissed it. It was just a story, nothing more. I forced a smile and chatted with a couple of nurses. They eventually left, and I ended up alone in the room. I took a sip of my coffee, watching the steam curl into the air. Suddenly, the lights flickered. My heart raced. Not again. I looked around, but the room appeared empty. I set my cup down and took a deep breath. This time, I wouldn't let fear control me. I grabbed my flashlight and headed back to the pediatric ward, feeling a blend of dread and determination. As I entered, the silence was oppressive. I shone my light around the room, trying to pierce the darkness. I felt foolish, like I was looking for something that didn't exist. But the moment I began to turn back, I heard it again. The soft crying returned, more desperate this time. My breath caught in my throat. "Sarah?" I called out. My voice bounced back at me, empty and echoing. I felt ridiculous. Just when I thought I would leave, I saw something at the corner of my eye again. A movement, fleeting but clear. My flashlight followed the shadow, landing on a small doll lying on the ground. I bent down to pick it up. It was worn, with one eye missing, and had a dusty pink dress. One of those old-fashioned dolls. I turned it over, checking for any identification. Then I noticed something. A small note behind the doll. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. "I'm sorry. Please don't cry." My stomach dropped. Had this doll belonged to Sarah? Was this a clue? Heart pounding, I turned back towards the door, feeling like someone was watching me. Then everything went dark. The lights shut off completely. Panic rose in my chest. I fumbled for my flashlight, switching it on again. The beam cut through the darkness, showing me nothing but shadows. I was alone, except for the crying, which had returned, more intense than before. "Help me," the voice whispered, and this time I felt it, a chill creeping into my bones. Fear bubbled over as I took a step back. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but a strange compulsion kept me rooted. That's when I heard another sound, a laughter, light and childlike, echoing through the shadows. It drifted from the far end of the ward. My heart raced. I had to know. I had to confront whatever this was. With one last deep breath, I pressed forward, light illuminating my path. But as I turned the corner, I felt a presence, and I froze again, the laughter fading into the shadows. I wasn't alone anymore. I stood there, frozen, the flashlight beam shaking in my hands. My heart thumped loudly against my ribcage. I wanted to run, but something held me in place. A part of me wanted to find out what was happening, needed to understand why I felt so drawn to this place, and to that child's laughter. I squinted into the darkness, waiting for the shadows to reveal themselves. As my eyes adjusted, I saw something at the edge of my light. A figure, slight and small, crouched by a row of beds. My breath hitched. "Sarah?" I croaked, the name escaping my lips without thought. Why was I calling for her? The figure turned slightly, and I caught a glimpse of a little girl with curly hair. A smile broke across her face, unsettling yet strangely innocent. The laughter rang out again, but this time it felt more like a challenge. She darted away, vanishing behind a curtain. "Wait!" I yelled, my feet finally responding as I rushed closer. The moment I reached the curtain, I yanked it aside. But there was no one there, just an empty bed, blankets stretched tight and undisturbed. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Maybe I was just imagining things. But then the crying intensified again, echoing around the empty ward. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I was about to turn and leave, but something caught my eye. On the bedside table, something shimmered in the dim light, an old locket. I picked it up cautiously, and as I opened it, my stomach twisted. Inside was a tiny picture of the same girl I had just seen. Her bright smile juxtaposed the sadness of the empty room. "Sarah," I whispered, the connection crashing over me like a wave. Had this locket belonged to her? But how was she here? Confusion wrapped around me. Just then, the lights flickered back on, flooding the hallway with harsh white light. I blinked and took a step back, startled. The laughter was gone, along with the girl. Only the sound of the machines and the faint hum of air conditioning filled the room. But I couldn't shake the unease. The locket felt warm in my hand, as if it had a life of its own. I turned back toward the hallway, feeling raw and exposed. My gut told me to leave, to put distance between myself and this strange night. But another part urged me to stay.
I was supposed to help. I had to confront whatever was haunting this place. As I debated what to do next, a shadow flickered in my peripheral. My heart skipped. The laughter returned, lighter and teasing, almost playful. It seemed to be urging me to follow. I clenched the locket tightly, glancing down the long hallway. I had to make a choice. Would I follow the laughter, this childlike spirit? Or would I turn back, letting fear take over? Before I could decide, the temperature in the hallway dropped sharply. Breathing became difficult. "Help me," the voice whispered again, more insistent this time. Something deep inside me knew I had to confront whatever was in that ward. I couldn't just walk away. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, determined to seek the truth behind these unsettling encounters. What I would find, I had no idea. But I knew one thing for sure. I was not alone. I took another shaky step down the hallway, the locket burning in my palm.
The laughter danced through the air, drawing me further inside, where the light flickered like a faulty bulb. My heart raced, echoing in the silence. "Sarah?" I called out, my voice trembling. No answer came, just the same echo of laughter that had led me this far. I rounded the corner, and there it was again, a shadow darting quickly from room to room. I hurried after it, fueled by curiosity and fear. The atmosphere thickened. I felt it seep into my bones, the heaviness pressing down on me. I turned down another corridor and stumbled upon a family waiting area. The flickering overhead light cast eerie shadows on the chairs and coffee table. I scanned the room, searching for anything out of place, when a sudden movement caught my attention. A stuffed teddy bear lay in the middle of the carpet, a pale little figure behind it. My breath hitched again. "Hello?" I whispered, taking a cautious step forward. The figure turned. It was another child, this one with pigtails and a wide, curious smile. "Come play," she called, and even though her voice rang with innocence, it sent a chill down my spine. I hesitated, still clutching the locket. "Where's Sarah?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Over there." She pointed down the corridor, then darted out of my sight. Panic surged through me as I chased after her, adrenaline pushing me on. I reached the end of the corridor to find an empty room. The bed was pristine, sheets tucked neatly, but the air thrummed with tension. I could hear whispers, urgent and pleading, swirling around me. "Help me!" the voice cried again, but this time it felt different, more desperate. I turned, feeling utterly lost. What did it all mean? As I stood there, I noticed a door slightly ajar, a flicker of light spilling into the corridor. My heart raced as I approached it, drawn by an unseen force. Was this where I would discover the truth? Just as I reached for the handle, the door swung open on its own. I stumbled backward, startled, and caught a glimpse of dark shadows shifting inside. In that moment, I saw the faint outline of a girl against the dim light, a face that mirrored the one in the locket. "Help," she whispered again, but this time it was followed by a low, rumbling sound that shook the very foundation of the hallway. The lights flickered menacingly. Fear gripped my throat. I wanted to run, but I felt rooted in place, a rising tide of urgency mixed with dread. I had to understand. Who were these girls? Why did they want my help? Then, everything went dark. The lights cut out, taking with them any sense of security. I heard soft footsteps approaching, and the laughter returned, echoing ominously in the pitch blackness. "Come play," a voice beckoned. I couldn't see, but I could feel the presence moving closer. Each heartbeat thundered in my ears, my hands clammy around the locket. What awaited me in the darkness? I had to find out.
The darkness swallowed me whole, a thick blanket that masked everything I thought I knew. I took a step back, but the laughter echoed louder, wrapping around me like a sinister embrace. My breath quickened, and I clutched the locket tighter, as if it could shield me from whatever was out there. I focused on the sound of the soft feet, straining to discern where they were coming from. A sudden flicker lit up the hallway for the briefest moment, and I caught a glimpse of the girl with pigtails. She stood at the far end, her smile widening as she tilted her head, an unsettling playfulness in her gaze. "Play with us!" she shouted, her voice blending with the laughter of more children, each sound more haunting than the last. "What do you mean?" I shouted back, desperate to drown out the fear clawing at my insides. "Where's Sarah?" The girl pointed again, this time past the doorway I had nearly stumbled into. "She's waiting! You have to hurry!" Before I could react, darkness engulfed me again. I felt disoriented, the air closing in. I started moving forward, driven by the need to find Sarah, but the laughter transformed into cries, overlapping and frantic. It was as if the walls themselves were alive, resonating with anguish. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on. I found myself in another waiting room, but this one was different, cluttered with crumpled papers and scattered toys. My heart sank as I recognized the toys as the same ones I had seen earlier. The bear, the doll, all were remnants of lost innocence. My spirit sank as a new sound reached my ears, a soft whimpering coming from one of the corners of the room. I crept closer, drawn in by the sound, and discovered a little girl crouched against the wall. She wrapped her arms around her knees, her long dark hair hiding her face. "Are you okay?" I asked softly, trying to keep my voice steady despite the tremor of fear. She looked up slowly, revealing wide, fearful eyes. "She won't stop chasing me," she whispered, a quiver in her voice. A chill shot down my spine, an icy shiver that seemed to touch my very core. "Who?" I pressed, wanting to anchor myself in the reality of the moment. "Mommy," she said, her voice barely above a breath. "She gets mad when I play too long." "What do you mean? She's here?" I felt a surge of panic. My mind raced, piecing together the fragments of bizarre encounters. The girl nodded, and just then I caught movement in my peripheral vision. From the doorway lurked a shadow, creeping closer. I turned quickly, but it was gone, vanished into thin air, leaving behind a sense of foreboding that coursed through my veins. "Stay quiet," I urged the girl. "We need to hide." But the whispers returned, louder this time, hissing secrets that ignited an urgency in my chest. I wanted to flee, to escape this nightmare, but the disembodied laughter grew closer, drowning out my thoughts. "Help!" the girl muttered beneath her breath, her eyes wide with fear. I wasn't sure if she was still talking about her mother or something or someone. That's when I saw it. The locket, still glowing in my palm, pulsed with an energy that resonated through me, as if it was trying to tell me something. But before I could decipher its message, I heard the swift footsteps again. It's time to find Sarah, and whatever darkness hid in the corridors didn't stand a chance against our determination. As we rushed to the exit, I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows had begun to close in on us. The laughter morphed, changing into a menacing chorus that warned of the impending chase ahead. I had to get us out, or risk facing whatever haunted these walls. The moment we reached the back of the room, I pushed through a door marked staff only. It creaked ominously, but I forced it open. A narrow hallway stretched in front of us, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights. I steadied my breathing, remembering the girl's terrified eyes. She squeezed my hand, and I felt her small body shivering beside me. "Where do we go?" she asked, her voice shaking as it bounced off the walls. "I don't know," I admitted, "but we can't go back. We need to find Sarah." The name felt like a lifeline, something to hold on to as we navigated this unnerving place. We rushed along the corridor, my heart thudding in my chest. The laughter had faded, but was soon replaced by a low humming, haunting and dissonant, like a lullaby gone wrong. The sound wrapped around us, pressing in from all sides. "Do you hear that?" I whispered, glancing down at her pale face. She nodded, her eyes wide with fear. I turned another corner and stumbled into what appeared to be an old break room. It was cluttered with half-eaten meals and stained coffee cups. A disarray of dusty chairs surrounded a rickety table, the walls painted in a faded beige. But amidst the chaos, there was something that made my stomach drop. A faded family photo sitting crooked on the wall. I stepped closer, recognition hitting me like a punch. The woman in the photo looked strikingly familiar. My mind raced, piecing together memories I couldn't fully grasp. The girl from the hallway, her mother, twisted in worry as she cradled a toddler. Unsettling. "Can we leave now?" the little girl urged, her voice breaking through my thoughts. "Yes, but," I hesitated, "we need to stay quiet." As if on cue, the lights flickered again, casting long shadows that danced across the room. I caught a glimpse of movement in the darkened corner. Panic surged through me. I couldn't let fear paralyze me now. "Stay close," I commanded softly, dragging her away from the haunting image. Just then, I heard disgruntled murmurs echo through the hallway, blending with the dissonant humming. They were growing louder, circling around us, as if we had stirred something from the depths of the darkness. "We have to go," I hissed, leading her toward a door at the far end of the break room. As I opened it, a gust of cold air slammed into us, strong enough that I stumbled backward, almost losing my grip on her hand. In the sudden silence, I felt icy fingers graze the back of my neck. I whirled around, but nothing was there. The empty break room felt like it was closing in, every unsettling shadow taunting us. Then I remembered the locket. "Wait!" I pulled it from my pocket, holding it high. The warmth radiated from it more intensely than before. It seemed to pulse with a strange energy, and for a second I could have sworn it reflected a figure in its surface. Without warning, the door slammed shut behind us. The echo stabbed through my heart. I turned, adrenaline pumping through my veins, but I hesitated. I could hear someone breathing. Someone else was here, breathing heavily, just on the other side. "Stay behind me," I whispered to the girl, feeling her tremble against me. I pressed the locket to my chest, hoping it would somehow protect us. Whatever was out there, whatever was watching, it knew we were trapped now, and it was getting closer. I barely had time to process the enormity of the moment before the breathing grew louder, a deep, ragged sound. Panic clawed at my insides. I couldn't see what lingered beyond the door, but I felt its presence, heavy and suffocating. "Are they gone?" the girl asked, her voice trembling like dry leaves in a storm. I shook my head, trying to quiet my own rising fear. "Not yet," I whispered, gripping the locket tighter. It felt reassuring against my palm, but I still wasn't sure if it could help. The humming outside halted, replaced by a silence so thick it felt unnatural. Then, without warning, a shadow slipped under the door. My heart raced. It elongated and twisted, melding with the darkness around us. I stepped back, feeling the girl latch onto my waist, her small body trembling. This didn't feel like a rescue mission anymore. It felt like a countdown. Out of desperation, I glanced around the break room, searching for anything that could serve as a weapon or a means of escape. My eyes landed on a rusty metal coffee maker, a pathetic instrument, but it was better than nothing. Just as I was about to grab it, the door burst open with a violent force. The hinges squealed as the figure emerged, shrouded in shadows, its features obscured. I couldn't make out its face, but I could see the outlines of limbs that seemed too long and distorted. "Leave her," the entity rasped, its voice dripping with malice. I instinctively pulled the girl behind me, feeling her small frame shake against my back. "Who are you?" I managed to say, my voice cracking under pressure. "What do you want?" The figure shifted closer, and I feared I could feel its breath, cold and clammy against my skin. A flicker of light from the hallway illuminated its form for just a second. Skin a ghastly gray, eyes black like voids. Then the light vanished, plunging us back into darkness, uncertainty hanging thick in the air. "I warned you not to come here," it hissed, the sound echoing in the confines of the break room. Then, without warning, the locket in my hand heated up like a live wire. It felt alive, a stark contrast to the encroaching cold. "No!" I shouted, clutching it tighter. In an instant, I felt a surge of energy radiate through me, and the figure recoiled slightly, as if the locket had somehow weakened its hold on this reality. I knew it was a chance, our chance. "Run!" I shouted, thrusting the locket forward as a shield. The girl rushed forward, and I grabbed her hand, pulling her with me toward the exit on the other side. But when we reached the door, it wouldn't budge. Panic surged anew. Behind me, I could hear the scraping of nails against the floor as the figure advanced, slower this time, savoring the moment. "Stay away from us!" I screamed, slamming my shoulder against the door. It felt like a futile effort, as if the walls themselves were keeping us captive. Just then, I remembered something Sarah had said, something impossible. "If you find the truth, you can escape." Before I had time to second-guess myself, I shouted, "What is the truth?" The question hung in the air, and for a moment, time stood still. Then I felt a rush of cold air as the figure halted. It chuckled softly. "The truth is what you fear the most." In that one moment, I could have sworn I saw flickers of light beyond the door, as if its barrier was weakening. But before I could act, the darkness lunged. Everything went black. I gasped as I felt a hand tighten around my wrist. It wasn't the girl's small grip. It was something cold and lifeless, drawing me deeper into the darkness. My heart hammered furiously in my chest. Panic surged through me like ice water. "Let go!" I shrieked, instinctively trying to yank my arm free. But the grip only tightened. For a moment, I couldn't tell where I ended and the darkness began. The air felt thick, suffocating. I twisted around, desperate to see. That's when my vision swam back into focus. The break room materialized around me, the gray figure still looming just beyond the door. But now it was different. Instead of just one presence, there were shadows flickering behind it, moving in unsettling coordination, like dancers lost in an eerie ballet. "Run!" I shouted again, this time more urgently, as if the word alone could cut through the heaviness of the moments that followed. But the girl remained frozen, eyes wide, lost in whatever nightmarish vision was playing out in front of her. Then, in a disorienting whirl, the locket around my neck pulsed. I could feel the heat spreading through my body, flowing into my limbs, sharpening my mind. "Trust me!" I cried, tearing my arm away from the icy grip and pulling the girl toward me. "I can't," she stammered. "You can. We need to go." I turned back to the door, ready to push past the figure. But then something caught my eye, an unexpected flash of light emanating from the locket, weaving patterns in the air like a beacon. Suddenly, I understood. The truth, I whispered, remembering the figure's words. The truth was the key. The locket was responding to the truth, not just fear. Close your eyes, I ordered her. Just close them and think of what scares you the most. Her hesitation was palpable, but she obeyed. I can't! Just do it, I shouted. I held the locket high and focused on the shadows surrounding us, willing the light to push them away. I can help us. In that instant, the world began to shift again. The locket bathed the room in an otherworldly glow. The entity shrieked, its form distorting and flickering, as if it couldn't handle the truth we were conjuring. I don't want to be here, the girl cried. I could feel her trembling, but I also felt something else, bravery building inside her. I could hear the entity now, its voice growing frantic. You don't know what you're doing. Then tell me, I demanded, what do you want? For a fleeting moment, the shadows hesitated, and I could see grim, tortured faces flickering behind the dark form. They screamed silently, their agony palpable. It was a chilling reminder. This place, once an ordinary hospital break room, had become a battleground of anguish and fear. The flickering lights turned wild, illuminating the real terror behind the entity, a reflection of every lost soul trapped in the darkness. This is the truth, I yelled, and the truth will set us free. With my heart racing, I felt a surge of determination. The energy from the locket exploded, creating a radiant barrier that pushed the shadows away. Now, I shouted to the girl, push against it. But as I turned toward her, I realized she wasn't at my side anymore. The realization hit me like a cold wave. Where are you? I whispered, panic rising in my throat. Then it struck me. My heart dropped as I searched frantically for her. The shadows danced around me, and the cold clutches of fear tightened in my chest. Just moments ago, I had felt her presence, fighting alongside me. Now I was alone, the stark realization crashing down like a wave. Where did you go? I murmured, scanning the room. Panic was swirling inside me, but I couldn't let it consume me. I forced myself to focus. The locket pulsed in my hand, its warmth a reminder of hope, but it couldn't guide me if I lost my nerve. The entity in front of me shifted, its gray figure swirling, and the tortured faces behind it pressed closer to the surface. It wanted to distract me. You will never find her, it hissed, its voice a low growl that seeped into the air like poison. I will find her, I shot back defiantly. You can't keep us apart. I closed my eyes for a brief moment, grounding myself in the truth. I didn't just need to think of the fear. I had to focus on the bond between us. I reached out with my thoughts, hoping that wherever she was, she could hear me. Hold on, I'm coming. Suddenly, the locket brightened again, and the room flashed with vibrant colors. The shadows recoiled, and I stepped forward, heart pounding. It was now or never. I felt the energy rising, fueled by my determination to find her. Let her go, I yelled, pushing the light from the locket toward the entity. The light collided with the darkness, creating a shock wave that sent ripples through the air. The figure howled, a sound that filled me with both dread and defiance. I stepped past the barrier of shadows, feeling the darkness clawing at me, but it was weakened, thrumming with fear. Then, from the corner of my eye, I caught movement, a glimpse of her silhouette flitting near the far wall. Over here, I called, urgency blaring in my voice. I can see you. But as I reached for her, something changed. The shadows around me deepened, swirling faster, as if drawn to her presence. I could barely make out her face, twisted with worry and fear. They're coming, she shouted, and for a moment the bond between us shimmered with intensity. I could feel her fear and my own merging into something palpable, something that urged me to stand firm. Together, I shouted back, holding the locket out in front of me like a shield.
I felt the energy pulse, resonating with the truth that had ignited both our hearts. We would not let the darkness win. But then a new shape emerged from the gloom. A figure, darker and larger than the others, stepped forward. It loomed like a nightmarish giant, its form exuding malice and an insatiable hunger for our despair. "Fools!" it thundered, its voice echoing with thunderous regret. "You cannot escape what you do not understand." I felt my heart race as I realized I hadn't faced the true enemy yet. "We will understand," I shouted defiantly. As I prepared for the ultimate clash, I felt the locket surge brighter than ever before. The light exploded outward, illuminating everything in its path. That's when I heard a cry, a faint whisper from the shadows. "Help me!" I froze, fear anchoring me in place. It wasn't just her voice echoing through the chaos. It was much older, a voice I recognized. "Mom?" I gasped, voice trembling. Just like that, the stakes became more personal. Now I had to confront not only the darkness that threatened to cut us apart, but a deeper wound I thought was long buried. "Wait, what do you want?" I demanded, feeling myself pulled into the heart of the storm, and dread washed over me anew. In a moment of unexpected clarity, everything that had been swirling around me, the dark whispers, the shadows, and the little girl's frantic cries, suddenly converged. I could feel the weight of my mother's absence, the years of grief bubbling to the surface. "What do you want from us?" I thought, desperate to understand the intentions behind this nightmare. The shadow loomed closer, its features becoming more defined as it stepped into the flickering light. "To set them free," it growled, its voice a low rumble. "But we can't be free until you confront the past." The faces behind the figure twisted like clouds in a storm, desperate and distorted by sorrow. It was a haunting reminder of the lost children, each one a tragic story, begging for closure. My mind raced, piecing together the fragments of pain that had lingered long after my mother was gone. "Help me," the familiar voice called out again, and I could barely breathe. I turned toward the shadows, grappling with the urge to reach out. "What are you trying to tell me?" I begged. "What do you need?" Taking a deep breath, I felt the locket pulse more vigorously in my hand. It was my lifeline, resonating with the truth I had been so afraid to confront. "You want me to face my fears," I whispered, feeling tears prick my eyes. "You want me to let go." "Release the pain," the entity commanded, its voice echoing through the corridor, pushing against my chest like a suffocating weight. I could see the outlines of the little girl's body trembling beside me, her small hand quivering. Somehow, despite the turmoil, I felt an odd sense of connection. She was not just a ghost, she carried pieces of my own unresolved grief. I closed my eyes, seeking to recall the memories of my mother, the warmth of her smile, the sound of her laughter drifting through the air. I focused on my childhood, the fleeting moments that had defined our bond, overshadowed now by time and sorrow. "I miss you," I murmured, the words spilling forth like an incantation more than a confession, understanding finally washing over me. "I need to forgive." The entity hesitated, the void of shadows faltering for just a moment. A flicker of light surged within me, and I grasped the locket tightly. "I forgive you for leaving," I declared, my voice gaining strength. I could hear the girl on the periphery, whispering through tears, "Mommy, please." With every syllable, the shadows trembled, and the laughter shifted into an echoing chorus, each child finding its voice. "Help us! Set us free!" they cried out, their stories of pain intertwining together. This was their plea, a cry for annihilation of the sorrow, not just mine, but the collective grief that had shackled them in limbo. I opened my eyes, pouring all my heart into the locket, feeling the warmth transform into a radiant light. "I let go of the pain," I shouted, and the words resonated through the darkness. "I release you. Find peace." The shadows convulsed around me, fighting against the illumination, but the bond I felt with the spectral children pushed me forward. I breathed deeply, and for the first time in years, the heaviness in my heart began to lift. Then, everything exploded into light. I felt dizzy momentarily, but steadied myself, my eyes wide as I watched the fragmented shadows swirl around, disintegrating like dust caught in the wind. "You're free!" I cried out, as they scattered across the room, flitting toward the open doorway, now glowing brightly. And then I felt it, a gentle hand grasping mine, reassuring and comforting. I turned and found the girl at my side, her eyes clear and shining with gratitude. Just behind her, a soft, familiar presence pressed forward, catching me off guard. "Mama?" I whispered, feeling the grief-tinged warmth wrap around us like a blanket. But as soon as I reached for her, she dissolved into glimmers of light, leaving only echoes of that gentle embrace behind. The little girl tilted her head, her laughter ringing like chimes now. "Thank you." Before I could respond, a powerful gust rushed past us. The walls trembled, and suddenly the room around us began to fade, giving way to the outlines of the hospital corridors, back to where they were before the shadows wrapped around us. With heart pounding, I glanced around. The flickering lights had steadied, illuminating the once dim waiting room, now hauntingly still. My heart was lighter but echoing, filled with lingering questions. And yet, I had survived. I had escaped the grip of the darkness and faced my truth. But the ache remained, interwoven with the mystery that still hung in the air like a sweet perfume. What had truly transpired? Was it all a consequence of the trauma buried deep inside? Or had I really been given a glimpse into another world where the spirits lingered? I moved through the halls slowly, fighting back the remnants of fear, but also embracing the warmth of newfound closure. The little girl was gone, and the whispers had faded, but the memory of laughter echoed softly in my heart. I still pondered if I would ever truly understand it all. I worked my night shifts, day after day, haunted but changed. Sometimes I thought about the girl and the sorrowful laughter in those walls. I had to remind myself it was okay not to have all the answers. I simply had to remember the moment and let that be enough. In a way, the mystery tailored my perception forever, a subtle reminder that there's so much more layered beneath the surface of existence, both human and otherwise. I grabbed my coffee one night and inhaled deeply, the familiar smell grounding me. How strange and beautiful life could be, as I moved on with pieces of their stories as part of my own.